Module 11, Overexposure to GUV. In this section, we will explore accidental overexposures from faulty installations, what happens when overexposed to GUV, strategies to avoid overexposure, and upper room and whole room GUV fixture safety. In this image, we can see how quickly an accidental overexposure can occur from a faulty installation. This GUV luminaire was installed upside down. So this means that the baffles that should aim upward are actually now aiming downward, potentially causing overexposure to persons standing too long or sitting too long in front of this luminaire. This image shows an upper room GUV fixture correctly installed. However, the installer missed that persons walking down the staircase are directly exposed to the germicidal ultraviolet rays coming out of the fixture. This can then potentially lead to an overexposure if the person remains on the staircase looking directly at the fixture, perhaps out of simple curiosity. Installers must always be mindful when choosing installation locations. This picture shows an example of a correct upper room GUV installation. So competent installation is important to prevent overexposure. Upper room GUV fixtures are validated to not overexpose people even when sitting for several hours. So the image clearly shows that the installers adhered to safety standards. What actually happens when overexposed to germicidal ultraviolet? Well, overexposure affects plants. They will not survive overexposure to GUV. Additionally, overexposure may have non-permanent effects on our skin and eyes, but let's take a closer look and explore overexposure to GUV and what it means. Overexposure to GUV can cause skin reddening, also called erythema. Now, erythema is an abnormal redness of the skin or mucous membranes due to capillary congestion. Erythema is like a mild sunburn-like effect without tanning. It results in itching skin and occurs when exposed to at least 2 to 3 times of GUV above the safety limit. How does germicidal ultraviolet affect the skin? GUV is scattered and absorbed in the stratum corneum, which is the outer dead layer of human skin. GUV is not transmitted through the epidermis. However, there are different wavelengths that when we talk about GUV we may find, which can be the 222 nanometers we discussed earlier or 254 nanometers. Now, you can see on this image here that the 222 nanometer is much less penetrating into the skin as compared to the 254 nanometer wavelength. 222 nanometer actually stops before entering the epidermis and has much less potential to cause damage to the skin. It is important to note that wavelengths above 300 nanometers will enter the dermis. However, GUV wavelengths are below 300, and we usually are looking at wavelengths that are 222, 254, and 265 nanometers, which will not enter the dermis. GUV wavelengths have a shallow penetration depth into the skin. Repeated overexposure to GUV is rare. Long-term effects, skin cancer has not been linked with GUV. Overexposure to germicidal ultraviolet can cause eye irritation, namely photokeratitis. Keratitis is the inflammation of the cornea of the eye. Eyes in general are well adapted to the UV and outdoor sunlight. But when ground surface is highly reflective with eyes exposed, reflection produces an irritation on the eye surface, the cornea. This irritation is termed photokeratitis. It is also known as snow blindness or welder's flash. Overexposure can also cause conjunctivitis, which is the inflammation of the ocular lining. The symptoms may not be evident right out of the gate, right at exposure. However, they usually become evident 6 to 12 hours after exposure. Symptoms include the sensation of having sand in your eyes, tearing eyes, and eye pain, which can possibly be severe. Usually these symptoms resolve within 24 to 48 hours. This image shows that GUV, shown on the image as UVC, is completely absorbed in the cornea. GUV does not penetrate past the cornea as compared to UVB. Hence, inside tissues are protected from UVC, also called GUV. So since we talk about radiation, at times people wonder, well, can GUV penetrate walls? Well, the answer is GUV energy usually does not penetrate through any solid substances and cannot penetrate walls. GUV is attenuated by most materials and it does not penetrate through regular glass. But what it can penetrate is quartz glass and sodium barium glass, which is used specifically for GUV lamps. Also, PTFE plastics have a very high transmission for GUV. Some of the strategies to avoid overexposure to GUV can include well-designed and commissioned GUV installations, education of maintenance personnel, proper signs, and safety switches, which all can avoid overexposure. During commissioning and before operating of the GUV installation, a handheld radiometer that has specific wavelengths for the installed fixtures, which may be 222, 254, or 265 nanometers, can be used to verify the safe installation. Further, validation that there's no stray GUV reflecting from walls, ceilings, and other objects in a room can be further strategies to avoid overexposure. GUV measurements for upper room and whole room systems should always be taken during the initial installation. Also, whenever new lamps are installed, it is critical to verify that GUV levels are still safe and that they did not increase, perhaps with a lamp that has a higher intensity. Also, whenever modifications are made to the GUV fixture or the system, so in the room, for example, adjusting the fixture height or location or positioning of the louvers, this may completely change how much GUV is being put into a room environment. Let's discuss GUV fixture safety. All upper room and whole room GUV fixtures should have an on and off switch and/or electrical disconnectors. If upper room and whole room GUV measurements taken at initial installation exceed recommended exposure limits, all highly UV reflecting materials in a room should be removed, replaced, or covered. Ultraviolet absorbing paints can be used on ceilings and walls to minimize reflectance into occupied spaces. It is noteworthy that most ceiling tiles have a relatively low reflectance. Review of the key points. Accidental overexposures can occur, but they can also be prevented. GUV overexposure can cause photokeratitis or conjunctivitis, which will heal and leave no lasting effects. Overexposure can cause erythema, which is like a mild sunburn-like effect, which subsides generally within 24 to 48 hours. GUV wavelengths 222, 254, and 265 nanometer do not enter the skin's dermis, nor do they penetrate past the eye's cornea. Strategies can be set in place to prevent accidental overexposure, as we just learned.